All right, welcome to the webinar, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Kent Bishop, and I'm with Diem Technologies. Today we're going to learn more about a really exciting tool called PSIGEN PSI Capture that allows RightFax customers to import faxes directly to PSI Capture for automated fax processing and routing of their fax images. It's removing time-consuming and costly manual processes from the equation. PSIGEN's a product we've worked with now for about three and a half years, and it's definitely one of our favorites internally here at Diem. We're always looking for webinar topics and tools that will bring value to our customer base, and we think that you'll find that today with PSIGEN PSI Capture. Joining me today, we have John Sutton. He's the Central U.S. Manager of PSIGEN. He's going to explain more about the product and show us a demonstration in just a few moments. But before we get started there, I wanted to explain how the process is going to work today. We have the GoToWebinar chat box off to your right side that you probably noticed when you logged in. We're going to do questions and answers at the end of the demonstration. And the way we're going to do that is using the questions feature on the right side of the GoToWebinar bar. So during the process, if you have a question about something we're showing, or about the product, or about the integration with RightFax, go ahead and type it in the box for us, and at the end during Q&A we'll address it at that point. So other than that, let's go ahead and get started. So a little bit about Diem Technologies. I think most people on the call know who we are. They work with us. Yeah, you're likely a RightFax customer of ours, or maybe another product line with us. We were founded in 1990 here in the Dallas area in Richardson, Texas. We became one of the very first RightFax partners in '93, and we've been doing it for more than 20 years now. So we have a ton of RightFax and enterprise fax server experience. Because of all that, we've performed a ton of integrations. We are an OpenText Platinum partner and support provider. So there's only 9 of us in the United States, and we're one of the very top. We provide first-line support on both PSIGEN and RightFax. So we are out in the trenches, and we work with both products very much day to day. So along with those 2 solution offerings, we're also in document capture, document management, secure information exchange. So as a value-added reseller, Diem plays in a lot of different areas. So at this point, I want to go ahead and jump into PSIGEN and let John take over. I'm going to make him the presenter. He's going to talk to us a little bit about PSIGEN PSI Capture and walk us through some of the RightFax integration, among other things today. So I'll turn it over to you, John.
Sure, Kent. Thank you for that. Just want to make sure that everyone can see my screen. Kent, can you see my screen fine?
Yes, sir. Looks good.
Okay. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of their schedules to join us today. My name is John Sutton. I'm the Central U.S. Channel Manager for PSIGEN Software. My contact information is listed on the screen. So if you have any questions for me, after our time today, feel free to reach out to me using either of these methods, or alternatively, you can reach out to Kent as well. So before we dive into this, Kent, I believe you wanted to cover maybe some of our integration and configuration options with RightFax. Would you like to dive into that before I actually start my demo?
Sure. Let me go through that. So we'll get into PSIGEN PSI Capture a little bit more in a moment, but it's a advanced document capture platform. So when you're configuring different document types, with PSIGEN's integration, you have the ability to connect up to your RightFax server to monitor different folders or different users or different boxes on that RightFax server. So just to show you a quick screenshot here of some of those things that you can adjust and that you have control over, we can filter out certain users. We can make it certain types of users to monitor. As I mentioned earlier, you could monitor different folders and filter that out, as well as the fax direction. Are we talking inbound or outbound or both that you want to monitor? And how do we want to mark those faxes as processed? Those on the call that work with RightFax deeply as an admin or something of that nature know that there's a couple of different generic flags, along with 200 plus different metadata fields that RightFax keeps track of for each fax, and so we can tell RightFax whether or not the fax has been imported and processed through PSIGEN. So there's some flexibility there on the front end to set up that import, and I just wanted to go through and show those interested on the admin side how that works before we dove into PSIGEN. So John, I'll turn it back over to you and let you finish out.
Sure, Kent, and thank you for that. And you touched on something a moment ago that I want to make sure that I leave our viewers with today. So RightFax will associate one of, or actually multiples of, over 200 fields with a document when it handles it. We actually have the ability to read all of those fields, so you can utilize that information to perform some pretty high-level processing. And also, when RightFax creates an image, that image has a proprietary format. Our products can actually read that format and handle that accordingly. So, just kind of keep that information in the back of your mind as we go through our meeting here today. So, one of the things that I like to do is, really just give a brief overview of what we do. We do what's called advanced capture. So not only can we handle information as it relates to RightFax, but really anything outside of that. And, most people are very familiar with, handling inbound fax traffic or scanning. And to us, that's, very simple. You're just taking a sheet of paper and converting it from its physical form to a digital form. That's fine if your volume is low or if your complexity requirements are minimal. However, we raise the bar in that, with capture in that, we give you the ability to interrogate the information and look for values that are important to you. That's what we're going to do with those faxes. And then once we find that information, we're going to automatically extract that and do something meaningful with the data that's been extracted, as well as the associated images. So you can now actually slice and dice the information contained within the documents that you're handling and processing. So, there's a cost associated with doing that. And in this example, if I had to handle 100 documents per day, I've just plugged in an arbitrary per hour rate of $15 an hour. Yours could be lower or higher. But in an average working month, that's going to cost me over $3,000. That number could be lower or higher, depending on volume and other metrics. But again, there's a dollar amount associated with handling any sort of paper. So the way that we're going to make life easier is we're going to give you the ability to effectively capture information. And as Kent mentioned earlier, we're going to integrate, with that RightFax server to act as really a traffic cop. Okay, but you may have other devices on the network that will allow you to standardize your capture process. Maybe you've got desktop scanners. Maybe you have copiers that can scan. We can leverage those as well because we're hardware agnostic. Maybe you have a file share or folder structure in place that has information that you've already scanned. We can ingest all of that automatically. Maybe you have electronic documents like spreadsheets or Word documents that you want to process as well. We can do all of that. So we can really give you the ability to standardize your capture process as a whole. Once we get capture solidified, we then give you the ability to effectively process those documents by using a varied number of methods to look for that information that's important to you and ultimately extract it and do something meaningful with that. Once all of that is complete, we now give you the ability to publish, or what we call migrate, that information to the back-end system of your choosing. Now that could be a document management system. Maybe we intercept these faxes, we interrogate them, we extract the valuable information, and we send that automatically to your document management system. Or maybe you want us to take that data and those images and push that to a folder on the network. We can populate network shares dynamically. Maybe it's going to be beneficial to have us output a flat text file of the information that we've extracted for you. We could do that on the fly. Or maybe it's going to be beneficial to take that data that we found and push that to a back-end database automatically. And oh, by the way, we can do all of those in one pass. So from a publishing or migration standpoint, we give you multiple options. The next question that I often get is, John, hey, this is great. Can you give me an example of who uses your stuff? Well, the cool thing about what we do is we can very easily service a 1 or 2 person, low complexity, low volume operation, but we're also very open-ended and flexible and scalable enough to accommodate the needs of, a Visa or Mercedes-Benz or a Shell or Steinmart or Boeing. So there's really no volume or complexity requirement that we can't accommodate. From a processing standpoint, these are some of the tools that we're going to use to interrogate these documents, as I mentioned earlier, to find that information that's valuable to you. And there are 3 on this slide that I want to really point out. First is OCR. It stands for Optical Character Recognition. Many of you, probably most of you, are very familiar with that technology. It works great. I simply, tell my software the location of information on a page that I want to read. It reads it, and that works great. However, we kind of put our OCR on steroids. I'm going to show you what I mean in just a moment. The second one here is ICR. That stands for Intelligent Character Recognition. What that means to you and I is we can actually understand handprint text. I'm going to show you an example of that. The third is OMR. That stands for Optical Mark Recognition. That means that if the users of the product can literally color a box, bubble in a circle, draw an X, make a check mark, make a mark on a sheet of paper, they can actually use our software. So here's a few examples of what I mean. This is typically a form that you would see when you go to the doctor's office. Maybe you see a similar form in finance or medical. The cool thing is we can actually read and understand this information. So again, as you receive faxes of this type, we can interrogate these documents to look for the values that are important to you. Another cool thing is barcodes. We can read virtually any type of barcode. One thing that's beneficial here is a lot of these guys contain a lot of information, so we can actually extract that information and use it as index value. So we can push that to a database. Maybe if we see a barcode, we trigger document separation. If we see, that we can just split documents automatically. Also, OMR, I mentioned that earlier. These are a couple of examples here. And literally what we do is we take these guys, and I think we designed this form in Excel, and you put it beside your scan locations, and you train your users to literally take one of these guys and just check the box or draw an X, tell us what you want to do, put it on top of your stuff, and scan it and walk away. So what this does is it minimizes the training requirement for the end users, but it also achieves the desired outcome. This is an example of what's called precision OMR. It's like what the kids use in schools to take tests nowadays. In a corporate environment, I see a lot of organizations using these for surveys. They send these out, we get them back, we read these marks, we tabulate the results, and now you can use that information to sort and to really do anything that you'd like to with it. So the core of what we do, the meat and potatoes of what we do, is called ADE. That stands for Automatic Data Extraction. Why this is important is, I mentioned OCR and that we kind of put it on steroids. Well, here's what I mean. With OCR, typically, when that fax comes in, you probably set up a template to tell it, hey, the value that I'm looking for, and I'll just say in this case, we're going to use the contract number here. If I see this document, the contract number is going to be in the upper right-hand corner, okay? And so I typically set this up as a template, and I tell it, hey, look in the upper right-hand corner. It would read the value. Life is good. The problem, though, is if for some reason, at some point, the value moved, maybe on the next page or on the next document, it's now in the lower left-hand corner. Well, now there's an issue, and that issue is I'm not going to get a read because I told it to look for, or look in, rather, the upper right-hand corner before. Well, the way I'm going to overcome that is I'm going to tell my product to look for the pattern or the trend. And I'm going to say in this case, hey, if you want to find the contracts number software, I want you to read the entire document. So read every page because I don't know where this information is going to fall. And if you happen to see a pattern or a trend that is contract space asterisk, I want you to look directly below it. There's going to be a number that's going to be 3 alpha, 6 numeric. That's the value that I want. So I want you to extract that and then populate the contract number field automatically. If I wanted to find, let's say, the claim number, I'm going to say, hey, software, again, read the entire document, read every page, because, again, I don't know where this stuff is going to fall. But I want you to look for a pattern that is procedure dash, or space, I'm sorry, description. When you find that, look directly below it. That's going to be my claim number, populate the claim number field automatically. So now it really doesn't matter where the information falls. It doesn't matter that the documents are structurally different from page to page or document to document. I'm still going to accurately find and extract the information. So what that does is it gives you the ability to not only meet the requirements that you have today, but it leaves things open-ended and flexible and scalable enough to accommodate change and growth as they occur in the future. Now, once all of that's done, I told you earlier that you got to push this information somewhere. So that's called a migration. Now, we could very easily push this to one of 60-plus document management systems that we integrate with. You could also dynamically push this to a folder on the fly. You could output a text file of the information, or we could push the data that we've extracted to a database. So the benefit here is you capture once, you process once, but you push to multiple destinations simultaneously. Here's an example of some of the systems that we integrate with on the back end. This is not all of them, but this is just a really high-level snapshot. If you need us to integrate with something that we don't currently, not a problem. As I mentioned earlier, we could very easily do a database push. We could also output a flat file, what's called a load file, to a share on the network for ingestion by that third-party system automatically. So again, we give you a lot of options as it relates to integrating with back-end systems. About the company, really briefly, we were founded in 1995, so we're very mature in the capture space. There are really 3 things that we focus on. The first is innovation. We can do things that our competitors can't. The second is volume. Even though, as I mentioned earlier, we can handle that high volume, high complexity operation, low volume, low complexity operation, at the same time we have clients that push millions of pages through our products every day. And automation is the third. We realize that the more processes that we empower you to automate, the more time, effort, resources, and ultimately money you're going to save. And I actually need to update my slide deck. We currently integrate with 61 different back-end systems, and that number is growing all the time. So with that, that's going to conclude the PowerPoint portion of our meeting today, and I'm going to go ahead and dive into a demo. So the name of our flagship product is called PSIGEN. And there's a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind as I go through this. There are really 2 ways to touch PSIGEN. The first is going to be in an interactive fashion. So, with that, you're going to see me with the interface open. I can mouse over things to execute certain actions, and I can walk through the various steps of the process. However, the second way to touch our product is in an automated fashion. So again, I'm showing you the 1s, 2s, and 3s, the individual steps of the process. Just know that we can completely automate this so that literally end users don't necessarily have to touch the product at all, but we handle the entire process from inception all the way through to completion. The other thing is, as I go through this, just also keep in the back of your mind that the indexing, the queuing, and the quality assurance steps of our process, we've web-enabled that with another product called PSIGEN. So we've taken that functionality and pushed it to a web browser as well, too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate the capture of some fax documents here, and I'm going to kick off a process. So our processes are stored as templates. Our templates are called document types. Okay, you can have as many document types as you would like. They can pertain to anything that you would like them to. You can have document types running simultaneously, servicing other parts of your organization, and you can associate any index values with any document type that you would like. So there's no limit to what you can do in that regard. So what I'm going to do is, I've got one here for fax routing. I'm going to kick that off. And I'm just going to grab a set of faxes here, okay? And what I've done here is I set my document type on my template up to say, hey, I want to know the source, the name, the phone number, the email, and I want you to know what folder we're going to drop this into. Again, I'm dropping this into a folder, but in your case, we could send this to just about any way that you would like us to. So we also have the ability to control our batch naming convention. When we ingest documents, we call that a batch. You can control, how this is named. That's beneficial because sometimes organizations want to go back and reference batches to ensure that what they received was actually processed. So just know that you have the ability to do that as well too. So I'm going to pull these guys in, okay? And as I mentioned before, with our products, we actually have the ability to read that proprietary RightFax image format, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this guy go through and interrogate these documents to automatically extract that information. So we're going to tell it to do an OCR. We're going to then interrogate the OCR text, and it's going to very quickly, as a matter of fact, it's actually done, pull out that information that was important to us. But we've also done some other things. We've used some of the data that we found, let's say in the header here, to do what's called a database lookup. So again, we've kind of put the process on steroids. We've extracted some information. We've taken that information and we've used that as a lookup trigger and hit our database and said, hey, if do you have anything on Sarah? Pull back Sarah's email address automatically if it matches this phone number. And then, I've noted in this case the folder that I'm outputting this to, but again, in your case, you could be routing this to an email address, you could be sending this to a document management system, or we can take this and push it directly into a database, I'm sorry. And, maybe it's going to be beneficial for you here to have the data itself available. Well, if I want to, on the fly, I could very easily output a spreadsheet of that information. And then I've got the ability to open this guy up and sort this and clean it up and do anything that I want to. Maybe you want me to take this and automatically email this data to somebody. Just know that you're going to have, that ability. So very quickly and very easily, I was able to take those incoming faxes. I was then able to interrogate those guys, extract the pertinent information, and then if I want to, I can say, hey, I want you to append, this data to this guy as an index value and send it to a document management system automatically. Also, within the interface, I can view the various pages. I can modify, I can split, I can combine, I can move pages around. I can do just about anything that I want to, with these documents, if necessary. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you another example of how we raise the bar as it relates to data extraction. Okay? I'm going to have the product do sort of a hybrid demo for me, in that I'm going to have it extract some information automatically, but I'm also going to ask it to give me the ability to do some things manually. So maybe in this process, you want to build a QA step so that you can interrogate those documents and have somebody put some eyes on these things to make sure that they're correct before they go to their final destination. So I'm just using invoices, in this particular example. And I like to use invoices because they're so dynamic in nature. No two companies design their invoices alike, but at the same time, the information that I want to extract is pretty common. They all have, line item detail. They all have an invoice number, a vendor name, an invoice date. That's all common stuff. And typically with OCR, zonal OCR, you have to set up a template, okay? And that's fine if I deal with 1 or 2 companies. But if I deal with 1 or 2,000 companies, setting up that many templates is really not practical. So I've got one template in this case to assist with all of these different documents. The other thing that I've done in this example is I've forced two of these guys to fail because I want to show you what happens in a real-world scenario, because not everything is perfect, and there's different variables that you have to account for. So I'm going to show you how we overcome that. So just as I was talking, it's already extracted some information automatically. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's going to be two documents that have issues, and by the way, if an error occurs, that's what we call an exception. Okay? So I have two documents that have exceptions. I know which ones they are because they have the little triangular caution symbols beside them. I know which fields on the documents need attention because they have the same symbols right there. So in this case, I was able to pull out, the date, the vendor name, and the invoice total, and now I've got to find the invoice number because it couldn't find that. So just so you know, behind the scenes, what I've done is I've tried to do some pattern matching, and I've told the product to look for all the different ways, in this case, that invoice would show up on a document. So I've said, hey, look for invoice, invoice number, invoice NO, invoice pound, invoice num, INV num, all those different variants. And then I said, hey, if you find any of that, if you get a hit on anything, I want you to look to the top, the bottom, the left, and the right, because the value that I want to extract is going to be nearby. Now, again, it couldn't find the invoice number in this case. I'll share with you that the invoice number is actually right here. Now, it probably didn't like, the fact that this font is really small right above it, and maybe it didn't like, that black to white inversion of the fonts. But I've done something else very interesting here. You'll notice that if I mouse over the invoice number, my product sees it. The reason that's the case is because I've done, as a part of my process, an OCR of the document. I've made the document searchable. And then I've made that layer of text available to me. So now if I want to capture this information, all I have to do is click on this, and I've just satisfied that requirement. So I have what's called point-and-click indexing available to me now. The other thing that I told it is, hey, I want to extract some of this line item detail. Well, because I have that point-and-click capability, I can simply, and I've got 3 records here to do, I can simply capture anything that I want to. I can left-click, drag, and hold, and I capture whatever I need to. Now, I've done something else interesting right here. I've told the product, hey, I've got a lot of invoices to do. They're different. I want you to highlight what you think is a unit cost in this case and an extended cost, because I don't want to have to read each document here. So I've chosen yellow for unit cost. There we go. I've chosen green for extended. Got it. So just that fast, I've completed my first record. I've got 2 more to do, and I've got an option right here that says Add Record. You'll notice that it has retained all of my header information, and I can very easily continue to capture. Now in this case, you'll notice that the product sees the quantity as 10 EA, yet when I click on this, it's populated the field with a value of 10. That's because I've actually done filtering at the point of capture. I've told the product that this is a numeric-only field. Drop any letters that you see. So I've increased the level of accuracy of the capture without the end user having to intervene in any way. So you'll notice now it's very quick. It's just point and click. I got what I want, and we're good to go. Now, that looks like this, by the way. Okay, so I've captured all that information. It's accurate. You'll notice that I haven't missed anything. So everything's good to go. Got one more document right here that has issues. It couldn't find the date, and I can see why it couldn't find the date, because this is just not the best looking original. If I mouse over this guy and click it, you'll notice that the date is formatted as 8/14/09. Yet when I click on this date to capture it, it's now reformatted as 08/14/2009. I've actually done data conversion without the end user having to intervene. Now I told the product that, hey, for the vendor name, I want you to do something different. The vendor name doesn't always show up as a font that can be read on the document. Sometimes it's going to be a picture. Sometimes it's going to be a logo. So in order to increase the overall accuracy, I'm going to give the end user the ability to simply do a lookup into my vendor database and choose the applicable name. And I've just satisfied that requirement. Invoice total, I could see why I couldn't find that, because, again, just not the best looking original. I told it to look for subtotal and sales tax. No problem, though. That fast, I've captured it. Okay. Now, next step is I could say, hey, before this goes anywhere, I want to make sure that it's correct. So I'm going to present the documents that have been captured, along with the data that's been captured, to the end user in a very spreadsheet-like view. Okay? And I'm also going to give the end user the ability to add, remove, or modify information on the fly. And that database lookup that I did earlier, I'm going to leave that live. Okay? So if for whatever reason someone chose the wrong company name, you can make the correction. So from here, as I mentioned earlier, I can choose which fields I want to map to the image and send that to, an email address as an attachment, or send that to a document management system, or maybe output this to a folder with a custom file name. You control all of that from here. So the last couple demos I want to show you involve complete automation. Kind of staying with the same theme, I'm going to take these guys. So on the way in, when I receive these faxes, and I'm just, again, using invoices, I'm going to say, hey, software, I want you for me automatically before I even start to interrogate these documents. I want you to split them automatically. So on the way in, I've told the product to, even though these were received, as one document, I've got individual files. So I've got a 1-page, 4-page, 1-page, 6-page, 2-page document. The way that I split this is I told my software to watch the invoice number. I said, software, if you see a new invoice number, that is a new document. If you see a change in that invoice number, then I want you to split automatically. But all subsequent pages remain with that document until you see that change. And again, once you see the change, split, and then repeat that process. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, rather than me doing that line item extraction, I want you to do everything for me. So I want you to go through and look for all the line item detail, extract all of that header information. So procedurally what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm looking for those patterns or those trends that I told you about. So I'm doing an OCR of the document. I'm interrogating that information. And you're going to see in just a moment the level of detail that I'm able to automatically extract. As a matter of fact, it's done. So if you look at, I'm just going to minimize the image right here for just a moment. Let's move this over. I want to show you the data. All right, so if you look at document 1, okay, I've got one record, no problem. We'll look at document 2. And also keep in mind, this is information that would typically have to be keyed in by somebody, by hand. I get the mail, I open it up, I go, hey, John, here's the new invoices, and then I'm going to read these guys and type all this data into an accounting system. But just look at the amount of detailed data that we were able to automatically extract. So we got document 2, then we go to document 3. Look at document 4. We've got a lot of information there as well, too. This happened in about, 15 seconds. Now, a couple things of note. I'm just going to move this over, and I'm going to mouse over this guy right here. Now, that says O.NE case Motorola W755. That doesn't look right to me. I believe that should say 1 case Motorola W755. So what I've done is I've left this data live. The benefit there is I can click on this cell, and not only will it take me to the document where it found that information, it will also take me to the very location on the document where it found the information so that I can proof it. So I click on this guy, and I can very easily see that on the original document it says O.NE. So we have a very, very, very accurate extraction engine. Now, because this is live data, if I wanted to filter this out, no problem. I could do that very, very easily. I also could have written a rule as a part of my pattern matching that said, hey, software, if you happen to see anything that looks like a period or a dot in the description column, I want you to filter that out automatically. And as I mentioned before, I have complete control over what I do with the data and what I do with the images. Again, I could take this and I can push it to a database automatically. I could, map this as index data to the image and send that to a document management system. Because I've got the ability to handle those exceptions, and that's a question that always comes up. People say, well, what if it can't read something? What if something doesn't go well? Well, what I'll do in that case is I would take the documents that have issues or exceptions, and I would tell my product to push those to a queue. Group these guys together and push those to a separate location, and then notify someone via email that they need to log in and take a look at these guys to fix them. But at the same time, the documents that are correct and complete, push those guys through the remainder of the process. So I now have, a process that accounts for those guys that have issues, but everything else is seamless and running right through the proper flow there. So last demo that I want to show you, and then we'll kind of open it up for a bit of Q&A here, is I'm going to go through, and let me just bring up my list here, and we're going to look at another example of pattern matching, okay? But we're going to do this in a way that is, we're going to automatically handle some sensitive information, because many of you, deal with sensitive data coming across these faxes. And there's a certain level of responsibility to ensure that information is moved about responsibly, okay? So I'm going to bring in a medical form here, okay? So again, I'm going to capture these, these guys as faxes, and on these documents, I've got what I'm going to consider to be some sensitive data. I've got a fictitious SSN right here, okay? And what I want to do is I want to have my software, at the point of import, when I receive that fax, I want it to automatically interrogate the document to look for these guys. And I want it to do a couple of things. I want it to find that, and I want it to black that area out automatically. Then I want it to publish that new, what's called redacted document, to a location for public consumption. At the same time, I want it to route another copy of the document that's not redacted to another location for internal use. And I want it to do this for me automatically. So again, going back to the whole pattern matching, I'm going to tell it to look for the way that an SSN would appear. So I'm going to say, hey, software, look for a pattern that is 3 numeric -2 numeric -4. And then once you find that, I want you to kick off these other processes. The other thing that I want you to notice, though, if you watch this number, I'm going to click back and forth. I don't know if you can see it, but the number's moving. So it's not in the same spot all the time. For zonal OCR, that's usually a challenge, because if that number moves, it falls on the edge of a zone or outside of a zone, you get a false read or you get no read. And because it's a sensitive data, I can't afford that to happen. The other thing is, most of you, or some of you may be familiar with redaction software. The problem with that is it's typically what's called an overlay, which means you're blacking out an area by overlaying, a mark on top of that information. Problem with that is that information can be potentially removed. It can be hacked, because there was an organization years ago, federal governmental agency, that posted a lot of redacted PDFs to the web, and a hacker got them and unredacted them. Well, our product is going to burn that redaction into the document so it can't be removed. So I'm going to run this really quickly, and it's going to run really fast. But as I mentioned before, you're going to see it do that redaction really quickly and really effectively. So actually it's done. So just that fast, it's done the redaction. I want you to watch the box that's been redacted here. It's moving. So again, we look for the pattern. We don't necessarily look at the zone. The other thing that we've done is we've extracted the data automatically, and we can push this to anywhere that you would like us to. Now, one other option that I want to show you here is if I go into the individual page view of the document, I've got the ability to manually redact as well, too. Maybe I want to redact this guy's name. I've got an option right here. If I click on it, I can mouse over the area. I can left-click, hold, and drag over that. When I release that, I can see the area that's going to be affected, and I've got some options at the bottom right here. I can choose to redact to black, redact to white, or redact with a white border. I'm just going to leave it at black right now, and I'm going to go OK. And what's happened is, in either case, the white page area has been converted to black pixels so they cannot be removed. So from a security standpoint, this ensures that the integrity of the document is intact. But from a procedural standpoint, if you wanted a non-redacted copy, because if you remember, we have the ability to migrate to multiple places simultaneously, I can tell my product to produce a non-redacted copy to another location automatically for internal use. So with that, what we'll do, Kent, is we'll go ahead and open up the floor for some Q&A. So I'll go ahead and pass the baton back to you.
All right, thanks, John. And let me go ahead and switch this back on. Okay, so it's always difficult when we do these webinars, especially with a product like PSIGEN, because there's so many capabilities of the product. You know, we saw maybe 10 to 15% of what it does. You know, in the data document capture world, we tried to keep it, you know, it related to RightFax, because we know so many of you are interested in that aspect of it. So, John, I think you did a pretty good job of showing, you know, kind of a wide, really high-level overview of a couple of examples of things that PSIGEN can do. That being said, there's a whole lot of stuff we didn't see. So if there is something you want to take a closer look at or have questions on, I can definitely follow up. You can shoot me an email, and we can talk more about it. I don't know that we have any questions. If you have any questions, remember you can use the questions area on the right side of your screen under the GoToWebinar bar. You can type a question there, and we can go ahead and answer that for you. I don't see any currently. So we'll wait just a moment to see if any additional questions come in. In the meantime, I'll put my contact information up in case you have additional questions. Again, my name is Kent Bishop, and I primarily work with PSIGEN here, as well as marketing for Diem Technologies. You can find more information about PSIGEN both through PSIGEN's website and through Diem's website. We recently updated that, so you can go and check that out. Let me see if we have any questions here. Okay, we do have a question coming in. It says, if you have a document sent to a QA location with email notification, can this be via a SharePoint location with a hyperlink to get it via the web? And John, I believe you can do that, but I want to make sure I'm not telling someone incorrectly.
No, that's completely possible. So, you know, through that that migration capability that we have, SharePoint is one of our supported migrations. So, as a part of your capture process, we can definitely send that to really any location within SharePoint that you would like us to. And by the way, we integrate with all flavors of SharePoint, including Office 365 and SharePoint 2013.
And John, if I can add on to that and kind of brag on you guys a little bit as the reseller, PSIGEN has the strongest integration and migration with SharePoint on the market of any capture product, large and small and everyone in between, even a couple of those out there that are widely known to be you know, specialized for SharePoint. That's a direction that PSIGEN really focused on a couple of years ago, and I'm sure you can talk more about it, but they have more functionality than anyone else on the market, you know, for that product.
Yeah, well, and Kent, thank you for that. You're absolutely right in that we've actually gone the API route to build our integration to SharePoint, which means we have much more functionality, you know, as far as integration is concerned than anyone else on the market. Microsoft actually put a bid out, I guess it's been about a year and a half ago, for their legal department. So the people that make SharePoint needed capture into SharePoint. And, you know, they looked at all the players on the market, and at the end of the day, they actually chose our product. So if you've done business with Microsoft in the past year and a half, you've actually indirectly used our product because everything in their legal department actually goes through what you've seen today.
Great. And one more question has come in, John. Do you integrate at all with Sage Mass 500?
Actually, I believe we do. I'll need to look at my integrations list. If for whatever reason that's not on there, all hope is not lost. We simply need to know what the back end is, and I believe Sage is either a SQL or AS400 back end, but I'll have to dig into that. So To that end, we have the ability to connect directly to a backend database, and we have an ODBC driver as well. So there are multiple ways that we can get from point A to point B. Oh, and also one other integration option is, and I think I mentioned this early on, we can also output the images to a share on the network with a load file or a metadata file, and that can also be used for ingestion by the third-party system as well too. So again, we give you multiple options there.
Okay, great. Let's see. I think I have another couple more questions here. Let me make sure I cover them all. Let's see. Okay, we got the Mass 90 question, the SharePoint. Okay. I don't know if I fully understand this question, but you might understand it more, John. This person's asking, can the doc corrected via SharePoint then be sent to a different storage location? I think this is a follow-up maybe to the previous SharePoint question.
Yes, so I think that question really speaks to sort of two-way communication, with SharePoint. The cool thing about SharePoint is it has a SQL backend, so we have the ability to either push information to or pull information from, that sort of backend. So the short answer to that is it's possible. We just need to have a more detailed conversation as to where you would like to ultimately send or pull that information from.
All right, thanks for that. It looks like that's all of our questions. If anyone in the audience has additional questions that we didn't cover today, or sitting over lunch, you're thinking about something, you want to ask a question, email me directly at kbishop@diem.com, and I will get back to you with the answer to that, or we can set up a call with a SIGEN resource if we need to dive deeply into the technical world. We can definitely set up demos for anyone, follow-up demos that want to, anyone out there that wants to see a specific feature or learn more about maybe the SharePoint migration, or if you want to talk more about MATS 500, we can do that as well. So I really, really appreciate all those who have taken the time to stay with us today. I know everyone's really busy, and spending an hour on a webinar is a lot to ask, but we thank you very much, and we hope you found some value in PSIGEN PSI and its RightFax integration. Again, contact us for more information. We'll be happy to talk with you and go from there. So, John, thank you again. Thank you very much, and thanks to everyone,
Thank you.
And we'll talk soon.